Hey everybody, welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I'm your host, Marquez Mosier, and this is my co-host, cohort, and eldest son, Austin Jordan. He and I always seem to bring out the feisty side of each other, and it leads to some very spirited conversations. There's never really any one topic. We see the world from many different perspectives, and sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. Either way, it gets very interesting, so sit back, relax, and have a bit of fun at our expense as we explore some of the most unexpected perspectives you'll ever hear about the world we live in. So, let's get started.
Oh God, it's the return.
No. It's Return of the Mac. No, that's not what.
Return of the Mac. I'll be right back.
What? Welcome to the Marquez Says Show. I'm Marquez.
You can't just start.
This is my
me.
co-host.
You can't just start.
This cohort, Austin Jordan.
Hi.
For those of you who are not watching, he forgot his iced coffee, so he had to run off real quick and run back on, and I started anyway. Haha. You know what?
What?
You should have brought it out here early, just like you should be voting early.
That's
Ooh,
true.
You like that nice segue
that was
right
a segue.
there?
But I brought it out late, like how some states are allowing late votes to be counted.
Well, and here, okay, this is election. Obviously, this is the election edition episode, or what you want to call it, because
Do we
when
have
this
one of
comes
those
out,
coming up?
yeah, you're so funny.
I haven't been paying attention.
No, you probably haven't, have you?
No.
That's unfortunate.
It's because I already know who I'm going to vote for.
Oh,
Just like everybody else. And they've had their mind made up for the entirety of the past 4 years.
Well, polarization will do that to you.
Yeah.
It will do that to you. But what was I saying? Oh, the voting is part of that. Some of the states are saying that no, if it doesn't get in, and not post-dated, but if it doesn't get in by the election by Tuesday, then it's not going to count.
I've seen
some
that.
are.
Right.
Some are.
Because
but
the Supreme Court said that there was. Oh, why am I blanking on the state?
I don't remember
right now?
which state, but
North Carolina?
I know.
It was something like that. And
Some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand exactly because now I understand state law, and some of the state laws have said that, and so therefore you kind of go by that. But with this situation and the pandemic and everything, it seems to me that if your taxes for your taxes only have to be post-dated, it would seem that the votes, and then within a reasonable time, of course, maybe 3 days, 5 days, whatever. But if it is post-dated by the election day,
Yeah.
I would think that should be allowed. But
Yeah.
but short of that,
and the types of votes that we're talking about on the national scale, they're going to be pretty insignificant. Like the amount of these, let's say it's only a few.
I just read this article this morning.
Yeah.
The early voting in Texas has exceeded all of the voting from 2016.
Wow.
Just the early voting.
Good for Texas.
Now that's going to mean one of two things. One, there's just not that many people left to vote for the actual voting day, which is possible. That's one thing that I think people are overlooking. That.
Well, what's the population of Texas versus the population of people that voted?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, normally it doesn't sway too much. I mean, populations, I would bet that it doesn't sway more than say 10% turnout, one way or the other.
Each election cycle.
Yeah. So 2016, it had X amount of people that voted total.
Right.
Early voters have already done that, so I can't imagine it doubling. I can't imagine it even being 50%. So I'm guessing that the remaining people in Texas is probably 10, 20% left.
I'd be interested in seeing breaking it down into demographics too, is who is voting in Texas now.
Well, at this point,
compared to who didn't before.
Yeah.
Is it young people? Is it like middle-aged people? Is it old people? Who is it?
Minorities, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I would be very interested in seeing who, because that could dramatically change the way that.
At the end, we'll know that because Texas is one of those ones that they've said, while not likely to go Democrat, it could. It's not like guaranteed. So my prediction is that we're actually going to get to election night. And election night, we are actually going to know roughly. We're not going to know for certain, but I think that we're going to know enough of one way or the other that, hey, the remaining votes that are left that are still out there to count and stuff like that, they won't be able to sway it one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think that's now. I think probably it'll go Biden, but we'll see. But I think either way, though, I think that it's going to be with all the early voting and hopefully they can get a lot of the counting done. See, this is the other one that I think is ridiculous. Although for leaks and purposes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Why can't you count them like start the day or two before? like, start Monday, like for the ones that are early voting. Some states can't start counting them until Tuesday.
I think that it's a well, yeah, I think like what you said, leaks, but even probably more so is fraud. If somebody has access to these early and doesn't like the way that it's turning out, they have more time to manipulate it.
That's true, but on the other hand, there is so many precautions. People don't even understand how many security precautions and stuff are in it.
Yeah, but when you have an incumbent president,
but you're also going to trust. If you're going to trust them on Tuesday, why can't you trust them at midnight on Monday? Like start Tuesday morning at 12:01. I mean, that's what they need to do then.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I do, but when you have like this sort of situation, not saying that Trump would do anything illegal or shady, not to say that he hasn't, but it's not to say that he would in this scenario.
Yeah, right.
There's like it could have been anybody.
Yeah.
The distrust, because that administration has more power than anything, so they could technically.
Well, then I hope that 12:01 Tuesday morning they start counting, because that would be one way to help secure that everything as many get voted or get counted, because that's what I think is going to happen with all this early voting, especially what I heard with Texas and stuff. Okay, for Texas, if they can get them counted, that state shouldn't be in limbo as far as what it's going to be. We should be able to know which way that state's going.
They generally aren't. I mean, even in the last election, it was like we knew. I mean, by the end of the night, like it was like over.
I agree. I think that's what's going to happen. I think electoral votes. I think they'll get to a point where this is how I explained it when I was talking to April, my wife. When I think we're going to know, we know which states are guaranteed blue, and we know which states are guaranteed red. All we really need to know is those flip states.
Right.
And I think
we won't know that.
But those territory states, I think there'll be enough like early voting and stuff like that you can look at it and go, okay, it would take like 80% of the remaining votes to come in for one or the other in order to change what the projection is right now. And that's just, I mean, that you start doing statistics, you start going, well, that's like a 90% probability that it won't happen.
Right.
And that's why I said, well, we can kind of know.
Knowing that information in advance, though, as much as I do think that would be pretty cool to know. It could potentially sway the results, though, because you could have people that end up being like...
Well, this will be after the voting's done.
Oh, after... Oh, you're saying so after the day.
I'm talking about this is as
over. And
correct.
then
This is like...
And we can break it down and see what happens.
This is like when polling closes. Like you're talking about 7, 8, or 9 o'clock at night when polling closes have closed on the East Coast and the West Coast ones are just about to close.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, I'm not talking about... I'm talking about once we get into 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
For sure.
I know that would what was I gonna say? Because I lost my train of thought because I was just the with all the early voting and all of that stuff. I just don't see how. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. Even in 2016, Trump didn't even win the popular vote. No. It was so close. I mean, Michigan went by 11,000 votes. Stuff. Right. We're not gonna have that this time. It's going to be one way or the other.
I agree.
It's either going to be...
the fact that it's going to be one way or the other is interesting to me. Like,
because when I say that, by the way, of course, it's obviously going to be one way or the other. But this is my logic behind it, is that if it doesn't come out strong right away, that Trump's actually even has a chance, it's over. Because he did not win by a landslide. He didn't even win the popular vote the first 2016. So if he doesn't get out to a huge start and it's like, oh my God, Biden's got to make up ground, whether it's electoral or it's not going his way because that's.
I'm hesitant.
You won't have a repeat. In other words, you won't have a repeat because the dynamics are different. That's all.
It
was so close.
That's something I keep hearing, right? And I think that's super interesting because I'm not so sure I'm sold on that. Well, I think it's going to be closer than people give it credit for.
And I don't think it's possible, but even then, it will go Biden.
And the reason I think it's going to go closer is because I think... And
How much closer can it be? That's what I'm...
No, not closer than it was in 2016, but closer than what the public perception thinks this one's going to be.
But that's somewhat irrelevant. I get what you're saying. Yes, you're right. I don't think... Because there's people that say this is going to be a landslide.
And it won't be. And At least I don't think it will be. We'll find out soon. I don't think it's going to be a landslide.
Well, it's so funny because I've listened to people and historians even say that there's been both situations to prove both, where it looked like it should be a landslide and it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And then there's times where it did not look like it was going to be a landslide, and it was, where it was somewhat of a surprise. And this time around, they're like, everybody's obviously more cautious because of what happened in 2016. But 2016, you're right, in hindsight, wasn't all that surprising.
It wasn't.
I mean, you're talking about 11,000 votes in a whole state, like Michigan. that was razor thin.
Right.
The chances of that happening again this time, I bet there's 11,000 people in the state of Michigan that voted for Trump and then
probably went like, no,
yeah, you know what? I'm not going to vote for him again.
Yeah.
And if he only has to lose like one or two pivot states,
right,
and it's over, and that's game over.
I think,
not that it won't be close. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But
I think that we're gonna have more voter turnout this election cycle, and I know historically that works in the favor of the Democrats
or incumbents sometimes too, though.
True, or incumbents, right?
So,
and I think that the assumption right now is that it's going to work in the favor of the Democrats, though. And although that may be true,
yeah.
I think that I think that a lot of people are kind of living in a bubble right now where they're seeing a lot of media that's saying Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, right?
Well, and vice versa. I mean, if you live in a Fox world.
Well, exactly, and vice versa. So I think people, though, are kind of losing perception of what's actually happening, and I don't think that there's the general public does not hate Trump as much as like the city state, like us, like a California or a New York. Of course.
Well,
or anything
but
like that.
This is going just off of common sense. It says that Trump did not win by any major estimates, well, not a landslide, no mandate, nothing like that in 2016. I don't know why anybody, except for that ardent, completely oblivious, blind faith follower, would think when I hear them say that it's going to be a landslide for Trump. Why? What would you possibly? I mean, it's.
I haven't heard that.
It's their rally. It's the people that talk about from their rallies and stuff like that. And I look and go, why would you even think that? Why would it even cross your mind that you think that it's going to be a landslide?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't.
I think he
makes
could
no
potentially
sense.
win, but I don't think that it's gonna. It would definitely. He's not going to win in a landslide.
And I do believe that it'll come down to. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it feels like those three major states, that the blue states that he won last time, don't look like they're going to be going his way this time.
Right.
And that's all it would take. Mm-hmm. So it's really difficult to see how he'll have a path. But then again, who knows? And I find it so ironic that they talk about the shy Trump voter. Mm-hmm. But then on the other hand, I also see the fact that everybody talks about, well, we see so many more signs of the Trump Pence signs and the banners and all of that stuff than we see of Biden and Harris. It's like, well, which one is it? Well, I mean,
I think
are they outspoken and they're proud, or are they the shy ones? So,
well, the thing is it's not any one group of people. Just like it's not any one group of people voting for Biden or anybody else. It's a collective of people, so it's a disservice to label everybody as like a shy Trump or or a loud Trump or anything like that. And that's an assumption that I think a lot of people make that's really dangerous, and then they lose sight of what's actually happening, and then they get surprised when Trump gets elected. It's not everybody is one type of people.
No, of course. And one big indication I think is that, and this one may be the most telling one. In hindsight, this may be what they talk about. I would bet that there is such a minuscule number of people that did not vote for Trump last time, mm-hmm. or Democrats, whatever you want to call it, and are going to now vote for him this time, as opposed to people that voted for Trump, albeit Republicans or independents, that are not going to. I think that alone right there tells you almost everything you need to know, because with such razor thin margins,
you need to have won people over.
Yeah, and that's one thing he hasn't done.
I know a few people that have said that vote traditionally Democrat that have flirted with the idea of voting for Trump in this election. Well, I don't know if they'll actually do it.
I've heard. One thing that one of the articles I read about was what was very shocking that they thought was strange, and it was a misleading headline, but it was that Biden has made inroads to a lot of the white people that voted for Trump, and that they're going to now vote for Biden. But a lot of the minorities. Uh-huh. But however, this is where it became really misleading, because the increase of minorities. The increase in minorities that are voting for Trump that would have voted for Democrats was like, I think 8%, 8 or 9%.
That we're at least aware of. See, that's the thing is, I don't like polls.
But the ones that the white voters that Biden has taken from Trump was like 30% or 40%. So the net result No, I'm talking about the ones
true, but percentages can be misleading though, because it's not necessarily. It doesn't shake out to the same physical number.
No, that's the point. Is that what the rest of the article at the very bottom, which of course it was they were talking about the fact that when you take say 8%, it was only tens of thousands of people. But
how much was the 30% though?
It was like hundreds, or if not,
that's
like,
a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
It was. I mean, it was exponentially more.
Yeah.
Where you look and go, okay, well, they would take that trade off any day because they're going to get exponentially more voters, the white voters, as opposed to the ones that the minorities that they're losing.
Yeah.
And see, that was why it was a little bit.
It actually happens that way. That's what I don't like about polls is polls can be inaccurate for a multitude of reasons, and we've talked about this before. Is like. One, somebody's mood can be in a really bad mood or a really good mood or whatever. It can influence what you're going to say in the poll versus what you actually do in the voting booth. Two, you might not actually vote based off just because you did your polling. And then three, it's usually the extremists, either direction.
Yes, and you're right. All three of those points are correct. But one thing I'm following is the propensity of the polls or just the analysis and so on and so forth is that the consistency in them. And that's
they
something
were relatively consistent in the last election, though.
Remember, they've adjusted this time. To think that the pollsters and all of the ones who make the algorithms and things like that haven't adjusted for like last 2016 and understanding the different dynamics and stuff is ridiculous.
Well, how do you adjust it though? Like, what would you do to adjust it?
Did you ever have to take a statistics class?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a million ways to actually figure out when you start going in and the algorithms and
but I think the thing that
when you do surveys, I mean, I remember
think that what the polls are going to always get wrong, no matter what, is you can't statistically predict human behavior. You can assume
you actually can.
No, I know. What I'm saying is you can assume it. You can get really close. You could potentially be right, but in a situation as charged as an election,
right? But remember, in 2016, the polls more or less, based on the people, were correct. Hillary won.
Yeah, but by a way smaller margin than anybody ever thought.
But she still won. She still won like with 52 to 48% or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so technically the polls, as far as the actual people, like people voting, like if it was just a true like one vote. But the difference is that with the way the electoral college is that it's skewed.
The way the delegates got
correct.
Right.
So if you think about it, the polls actually weren't so incorrect. It just flowed out that the way that they got shaped up because of the electoral college is how he ended up being president.
I mean, but there were polls that came out the week of the election that had Hillary winning it
here's another
80-something%.
No, but here's another one is that they talked about this week because I've watched where they said that a week out, because they were doing it day by day.
Right.
A week out, she was like up by 12. And then the Comey email thing came out, and then she was down to by 9, and then it was 8, and then it was 6, and then people said that if you even are, and I think it was 4 or more. Normally, if it was 4 or more, you should win. That was the general consensus, and she was holding still at 4% better. Now we know what happened, but with Biden in this case, that's not the case. He's holding double digits all the way. I don't know what today's are.
True.
And that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
So they did say that they talked about how we should have saw it coming. Some people did.
And
some people did. But they should have thought. But again, it was one of those once in a lifetime things where 3 blue states that hadn't gone red in 50, 60 years.
Well, I think
nobody would have expected it.
Part of the problem with the last election, and this is what I'm really cautious about in this election, is treating it like it's normal. Or that, we could predict it based off of this, when that's not the case.
Yeah,
and it won't be the case ever again.
I've told you that about how this one
I know.
This one is unique in American. Even historians are saying that this one is unique, and it will probably be a whole nother couple generations before we have something.
And you and I agree on that. I think we disagree on the reasons for why it's unique, but we do agree that it's unique in that I don't think the American election will never be the same. It got changed. It got polarized.
Well, politics in general.
Right. As soon as Trump came in and started a run and actually won, and even just his running, the campaign, changed everything. It won't be the same. We need to adapt to that.
Right. And then it'll become the same.
Right. And then it'll become
20
the
years
new
from
normal.
now, 30 years
right.
from now.
And then it'll become the new normal. But we have, that is the biggest thing. But that's something that I think a lot of people are really hesitant to do is if we admit and we change this, then we admit that, well, politics has become a mockery. Politics has been a mockery for 50 years.
Yeah.
Like,
there's only been blips of where it comes up. You know, and it's interesting. We talked about historically,
Yeah.
like what you just said with the 50 years, is that you had, and you can almost pinpoint, and I was watching a documentary on RFK, when basically when he got assassinated, and and after that election, from then on, when he got assassinated, that's when Nixon won. And maybe we don't all know what happened with Nixon, but if you didn't, go check your history books. Nixon bad.
Or maybe if you're not in the U.S. and you're listening to it, it's like Nixon got impeached.
Yeah, it was a bad situation. And from that point on, it was a tailspin. From then on, we had a nice little blip, I think, with Obama, where all of a sudden there was some light at this end of the tunnel that maybe things could come back to someone who's charismatic and can bring, all that stuff. Yeah. Clinton had a little bit of it, but he was very moderate.
I think
that was his reason why it happened.
I would say Clinton is probably the best president we've had in the past 50 years. I guess Reagan would fall into that, huh? Reagan or Clinton.
You may or may not like what Reagan did. I mean, he didn't get everything right. Reagan obviously did not get everything right.
Oh yeah, that's a good qualifier.
But the things that he did get right and what he did do for not only the United States but the world, that totally goes more than what Clinton did. Clinton was able to actually. Oh, by the way, again, as you could tell, I like history stuff.
Yeah.
I read about the Clinton one where he was able to maintain. His biggest thing was be able to maintain and sustain a prolonged period of economic prosperity and no wars, etc. But it was only because Reagan was able to essentially end the Cold War.
Yeah, well, it was a good succession of events,
right?
And then
he was the right place, right person for that job at the time, right place, right time.
And let's not forget, I mean, he overcame a lot of personal stuff too. I mean, he brought it upon himself, but he was able to navigate that and still be the.
Wouldn't you like it to go back to where the biggest scandal in the White House was that the intern was giving a blowjob to the president?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I would so take that at this point, as opposed to the shit we're hearing and all this stuff that's going on right now.
Right, and the other thing is that's so stupid. It's not like, I mean, it doesn't matter.
It didn't affect the country at all.
Honestly, if the president's feeling a little bit stressed and he needs a little bit of extracurricular relief,
no, that's not true because he was married.
I know, but
if he was single, that you could argue.
No, I know that, but I'm just saying, look, there's worse things. Yeah, and the only reason that he was really targeted, it was a political move to target him.
Yeah, they would never even.
No, and it was.
Or you would never have known about it.
And they didn't even care about the fact that the incident. They tried to get him on the lying about.
Well,
the
that's
incident.
actually what they did. And see, when we talk about that,
and they trapped him on purpose.
And you look back at that and go, I would so much rather that controversy because it doesn't even actually have anything to do with the day-to-day lives of people in the United States. What Trump does, and the White House in general, the people he's appointed and stuff, it does. The policies that they talk about, the rhetoric that he does, those things actually do have, whether you're for it or against it, it makes a difference in your day-to-day lives. And that's horrible because that is not what
a lot of minority groups, though. Well, I guess it depends. I don't want to speak for minority groups, but from what I've heard from friends of mine and stuff, though, they tell me the opposite. They say that Trump says a lot of dumb shit. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah. But that they don't really feel like he's affected their lives.
Well, then I would actually, I would ask them
that he's like all talk essentially.
So, well, that may be true, but his supporters take it. Have them go to, some of those people that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Have them go out of LA and go down south.
Yeah, that's true.
Have them get out of the Southern California and have them go to Atlanta, Minnesota, places like that, and see if they feel the same way when they run into Trump supporters. Because even Trump supporters in California don't even act necessarily the same way. I don't believe that we've found a plot to kidnap our governor. As much as people hate our governor, whether you like him or not, there hasn't been uncovered a malicious plot to actually that was planning.
Yeah.
In which the president, of course, then doesn't say a word about.
Right.
Where's his law and order now?
Yeah.
See, so it's...
Trump is an opportunist.
Oh, my God, yes.
Yeah, so anything that he says or does, I don't really think he believes in it much. He's just doing it to exploit an opportunity.
Well, I think he believes in it as long as it will get him what he wants. There was
I think that he's aware. Well, this is what I give him credit for that I don't think a lot of people do is I think that he doesn't genuinely believe in a lot of the stuff he says, but I think he's aware of what he will get from it. And I think that he's
that's like
calculated.
The definition of selfishness.
Well, it is. And I think he's calculated that, yes,
you know,
this group of people is going to hate me for it, but this group of people hates me already. so I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna help me.
Yeah, but as a politician, that doesn't work.
Oh,
that's why.
Well, that's kind of what most politicians
do. A politician needs to be able to get people, convince people. That's why they get caught in. They need to actually. He does nothing. He does absolutely.
But that's the old way of thinking.
No, it's not. No, it's just elections. It's votes. He does absolutely nothing to gather new votes.
That's not true. He's trying right now with the
whole with
the platinum plan and all that stuff. I know,
but that's only because, like you just said.
Yeah,
he's only doing it, and because of the fact that it's something that he sees.
You've been seeing that in the news a whole lot more, though, huh? I was talking about that a few weeks ago.
It wasn't. Ice Cube did himself no justice in the video he did.
I watched it. I didn't think he was. I don't think he was. I think people are looking for things to be mad about.
No, what I mean by that is that his points are great, and actually they would be better had he not said them as opposed to reading them. Because if you would read it. It's a much better presentation.
That's the thing, though. But people don't do that. People aren't going to take the time to go read it.
I know, but the video itself.
Well, what I have a problem with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think what people are missing, and and I think the major criticism of it is that he was essentially trusting Trump, and when you're trusting someone who is an habitual liar. Now that's I think that was the crux of it. My understanding, my feeling of it was that was the crux of it, because what he did, I had no problems with. Absolutely, you go to the person in power, totally get that. But the fact of the matter is that but when you go to this person in power and you can't really trust that even what they say they're going to do, you have to start to go, well, could it be a waste of my time? And you know what I mean?
I do. I don't think he trusts Trump, though. I don't think he trusts anybody. He doesn't trust Biden either. He doesn't trust either of the.
Ultimately, I think it was Cube going back to his NWA days and creating controversy, like I said with you, where he knew that it would bring attention to his issue.
Oh no, for sure. Cube is a very smart guy. And I think.
And he's a lord.
What?
He's a lord.
What does that even mean?
There's this thing coming out where you can buy a piece of plot of land, like a yard by yard.
Okay.
In I think it's Scotland or something. I saw it because I bookmarked it. And if you own any land,
okay,
you're a lord and your wife is a lady.
Okay.
And he did a commercial for it because I saw it, and he said, "I am Lord Ice Cube."
What the hell you're
meaning
talking
the
about.
title. And and I was like, yes. Go Ice Cube, because April looked at me and she goes, "You're not doing it." I'm like, "Oh hell yeah, I'm doing it." You have a legal thing. You can put it on your driver's license. It's a legal title that you can put.
That's funny.
I would be Lord Marquez.
Ice Cube was also advocating for the what's his name? Shoemaker? What's his name? The director.
Joel Shoemaker?
Yeah.
From Batman?
Yeah, he was, because I don't even want to talk about this. I want to get back to the Ice Cube thing.
That was talking about the.
Okay, so Ice Cube, incredibly smart guy. And what I keep saying, kind of like what you said, is like, oh, well, it did a disservice to him. Like, I love his points, but the talking about it was a disservice.
He just didn't communicate it as well as he could have.
But here's my problem with that thinking, is not you, but people, you guys know what he's trying to say. You agree with what he's trying to say, and you think it's a good idea. Why are we mad at him? We understand it. We get it.
Because
we know his intentions.
It's because who he was doing it with.
He did it on CNN.
No. I'm talking about Trump. There's no trust factor there.
Okay,
and put it this way. Okay, think of it this way. We've seen that he's a liar. You can't trust Trump. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, you can't trust any of the.
But no. But specifically, Austin, there has been no president, no politician ever in the history of the United States. I wouldn't say world, because there's been some really bad people. But
that's documented, at least. We don't know that. And you got to remember, for somebody like him.
Okay, again, you know what? If you cannot admit that Trump is just a horrible person.
No, I can't.
Okay,
he is a horrible person.
If he's a horrible person, then why do you partner with him?
Because there's no other choice. Who else is he going to partner with?
All he had to do was wait till after the election.
Okay, but what if Trump wins the election?
Then you go to Trump.
And
you think Trump's going to be any less? Okay, hold on. If Trump wins, and then he has no more interest in Cube, that validates all the people saying...
Yeah, but you have to try anyway.
Wait, so if you wait, what was the problem? Is what would have happened? I mean, what was the downside to waiting?
Vote.
What was the downside of waiting?
Because he wants to make sure that his people get the representation before the election. He doesn't want them.
But that's the thing. You can't trust Trump. So even if Trump says, "Hey, I'm going to do this,"
you have to put yourself in Ice Cube's shoes.
Austin,
he doesn't.
But put yourself in the opposite shoes. Put it this way. Just play this out. Cube goes to Trump. Wait, let me finish. Cube goes to Trump. Trump says, "I'm going to do this for you." all the people that were backing Cube then vote for Trump, right?
Right.
We have almost a certainty that Trump, there's a 50-50 chance that he's going to actually do what he says he's going to do.
That's why he wants guarantees before the election.
There is guarantees are just words, and Trump doesn't keep his word.
Well, it could be kept in writing, but
no, he would not put it in writing. Trump's not going to put it in writing.
We don't know that.
Then why didn't he?
Because it's not done yet,
but
and two,
exactly.
But
he is stringing it along until after the election.
I don't know. We'll see. Trump has done some.
This is the problem. This is why you are absolutely 100% correct. And from a controversy standpoint for Q, what he did, he got the attention and stuff like that because he's right. I'm going to go to whoever can help me. Makes sense 100%. But when he
went to both too. That's the other thing that people aren't acknowledging.
Right, and Biden said, "Let me get back to you after the election," because that's what you should do. He needs to concentrate on basically the election, and then, hey, I will help you out when I'm in power.
Okay, but that's not what he said. But okay, so here's the other thing: is I know you're talking about look at it from the opposite shoes. Honestly, the opposite shoes don't hold as much stock as what Ice Cube is thinking, though, because Ice Cube is in a position that we can't understand.
Well, guess what, Austin? He still hasn't got anything more done.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
We are 3 days away from the election. If there was something to be said, and it's a Friday, because you're not going to go on Saturday and Sunday with the news cycle and the political and all that stuff.
He might. Trump might.
And then if he does, how can you tell me that it's not just another self-serving thing that he's saying?
It doesn't matter if it's self-serving, if it actually helps something.
It was not going to help something. See, that's the problem. You think it's going to help something, and it won't. It's only going to help Trump. That's it.
No, that's not true.
It's just words.
The prison reform was self-serving to make him look better. But it did help things.
Right, and that was a year ago. That was
I know, but they're going for a repeat. That's what they're trying to do with this.
But they can't. There's not going to be any tangible evidence of it. That's the thing.
We don't know that. That's what I'm saying. Is Trump is so unpredictable because this might be his final Hail Mary. This is what I think it's going to be.
He can't do anything. He can't push anything through.
He can sign it. Yeah, he can.
No, he can't. It's just a commitment. It's not even anything that's binding. There's nothing binding about it.
If he were to sign something in the law, it would be.
Congress does laws, remember?
He could do an executive order.
Again, no power behind it. It's symbolic.
No.
What are you going to say?
Most part,
treat blacks better?
No.
What's the executive order going to say?
Because look at this would be this. If I were Trump, this is what I would do.
And why hasn't he done it already?
I think he's waiting.
Early
Just
voting.
like with the
early voting.
I don't think he's trying to get the early voters. This is what I would do if I was Trump to win the election at this point. Draw out this platinum plan thing. Sign it.
We're way off target, by the way. Topic.
No, it's election. It's still about the election. Sign it right before the election day, like the day before. Do an executive order. Get all these people like, oh my God, he just did this this is the new contract for the minorities of America. Let me finish. Let me finish. That's gonna give him basically that like what the email scandal was to Hillary. Except it's gonna help him. It's gonna be a positive thing in his favor. Let me finish. I let you finish. And I think that would count for so much. Once he signs that executive order, let's say he loses. What is the Biden administration going to do? Undo it? They can't undo it because it's a huge PR nightmare saying like, oh, well, you undid the new contract with the minorities of America. That would look horrible.
And he won't do it because if he signs something that's actually promoting Ice Cube, black community, all that stuff, he will lose his people. He will lose the ones that his base. It goes against his base. I don't
think so. Unless he knows that those people already did the early voting, like Texas.
And there's not enough time. This is a Friday. You have to disseminate it. It doesn't. Not everybody in the minority communities
he doesn't think
are
like
all of a sudden.
that.
But that doesn't matter. His other people should already be hyping it. They should already be saying we're going to have a executive order. The president in the next day or two we're finalizing. They would be hyping it right now.
We don't know that. That could be happening.
Austin, this is just basic marketing and advertising.
Lil Wayne yesterday. That could be part of it. It doesn't have to be overt. Things are so like little these days. Like,
so I have a question for you. Do you not feel that you're being conned with him when you know damn well he doesn't care about Lil Wayne?
No,
he doesn't care about black people.
I do feel like it's being conned. I do feel like it's being conned, but if some good actually comes of it, I think they know they're being conned too.
If. That's a huge if.
For these,
so you're allowing yourself to be conned? You're allowing yourself to be conned in the outside chance that maybe something's going to be...
It's the ends justifying the means.
But that's the thing. All you have to do is wait till after the election.
Okay, but these people, Dad, the like Ice Cube or minority groups, they already feel like they've been conned the whole time. This doesn't feel different.
So this shouldn't be any different.
No, they're trying to exploit that instead of being like, well, I'm gonna wait for the person that won't con me, because they don't think that person will ever come.
Okay, I think again, everybody is missing how horrible of a person Trump is. You're just missing that. That's what, and it's not just you.
I know,
it's all of the people that don't understand that he is just not a good person, and he will turn on you on a dime.
But horrible is horrible, and these
But no, the other people aren't as horrible.
It's not about being as horrible. It's about what gets done, though.
Trump isn't a politician.
No,
it's worse. He's actually just a flat out liar. That's totally different.
I know, but most people in the public perception will tell you that's what a politician is.
No, that's what I think has been proven this time around, is that there is one level of politician, and then there's just flat out liars.
Well, if people didn't see that before in the election cycle of 2016, then they...
Well, no, we didn't know how much he lied. We didn't know how he was as a person.
That's not true. You keep saying that, but that's not true at
we've
all.
had 4 more years, and he's actually had his... okay, put it this way. You're right about all the... how are you supposed to know when... If you went by based all his tweets and all those things before, he was a Democrat.
Right.
And all those things.
Because he's an opportunist.
Right. And then he gets in office and he does the complete opposite stuff.
Right.
Okay, so why would you have seen that coming? Why would you have seen him embrace white nationalism? Why would you have seen him embracing white supremacy?
What everybody said he was going to do. I don't understand. Like, there's such a large disconnect between what we saw of Trump during the election cycle.
I do not hear people saying that was what
that
he was
like, do. We need to go back and look through all these Facebook timelines and stuff, because that's exactly what people were saying.
Okay, no, you're right. There is sometimes when you talk about Lindsey Graham and stuff like that, you're right. And then they change their mind because they won. That's the state of America. That they actually, when those people that knew couldn't stop it from happening. America let it happen.
Yes, they did.
Right. Well, so now why would you put your faith in him?
No, I'm not putting faith in him. No, I mean
anybody. Why would anybody put their faith in him?
I don't think they're putting their faith in him. They're trying to get something done. This year has been a landslide.
I'm just saying that he is not the one that gets things done.
Okay, but nobody
Especially when it comes to racial issues. He's had so many opportunities to win over the minorities. He's had so many opportunities to bridge that gap for him. And he hasn't. And they've been recent. And he still hasn't.
Yeah.
Now, you wanted to bring up something about the voting in general, about the disingenuousness of the voting campaign.
Yes. Yeah. That was a much more aggressive way of putting it than I was going to. But it's true. I think I have a problem.
No, you made an excellent point. I mean, I'm giving you that right off the bat, where there is a certain... Oh, go ahead.
There's a certain undertone and a certain rhetoric that is being put out right now by the whole make sure you go vote, make sure you go vote, make sure you go vote.
Well, because there's a lot of independent. There's a lot of independents that are saying, have a problem. Vote. We don't care who you vote for.
Yeah.
We just want you to vote. But then
those I don't have a problem with.
Then there's not a subliminal. But then there's another layer undercurrent that's.
But there's a group of. There's a vast majority of people on like social media, like Twitter or anything like that are basically like, look, go vote for Biden. Your vote is incredibly important. But if you're going to vote for anybody other than Biden, don't vote, because then essentially your voice isn't.
But see, that's the thing. I actually haven't heard much of that. I mean, it's the different circles we run in.
Because it's not being said necessarily explicitly. Some people are. I mean,
most of the things I've heard have been.
AOC even said basically like
I think I heard something.
It's like basically it's just, and again, there's nothing wrong with expressing who you want to vote for or who you think people should vote for, but you should never tell anybody who to vote for, and that is the most un-American thing you could do, or at least one of them. You should never tell anybody who to vote for. And what I wanted to say...
Well, unless you're running.
Yeah.
Unless you're their campaign.
But even then, you're still expressing an opinion. But what I wanted to say...
saying, I want you to vote for me because I feel
right,
that I am the best.
Exactly, and you have to earn your vote. And I think that's a big part in why people are so frustrated with this election.
Well, I think it's not even just... Well, I think the election is indicative of it, because this is the first time that... the first time that people hate the opposite party more than they like their own party. That's never happened before.
I don't think that's true. I think the 2016 election was
because it hadn't happened. It hadn't flipped over quite yet. It hadn't actually like rolled over. Now it was close. It was, don't get me wrong, it was close. But now it's tipped over to where the percentages of when they ask, they hate the net difference is that they hate the other party more than they love their own party.
I still don't know if I agree
this isn't
with that.
anecdotal. I'm talking about actual, like, the different surveys and stuff from then until all the past ones until now.
I guess if you're going to look at surveys, but again, I don't those.
Oh my God! If you can't trust polls and surveys and stuff, you can't ask every single person to do it.
Right,
It's the only way that you can get a feel for vast amounts of numbers of people.
Okay, but that's not true. We've talked about this in the past. Everybody expresses their opinion on social media.
No, they don't.
Well,
because
not
some people
everybody,
don't even get to social media, and not to mention, if you're doing social media correctly, at least this is my opinion, you don't have to have the differing views on it. Now, if you want to, that's fine. Now, in real life, that's a different story. In real life, you have to have different views.
Okay, that's true.
You
not
need
everybody
to listen.
expresses their stuff on social media. That's true. I overstated. However, to me, and this is the way I look at the poll.
How do you know what people in Kentucky are thinking?
I don't know. The media, I don't know. That part's not so important. Polls are just, they're just not as necessary as they used to be.
That's you from your bubble.
Maybe, but I mean,
you gonna log on to some Kentucky Facebook groups and see how they're.
That would probably be more accurate than a poll. Which ones? I don't know, but it'd be more accurate than a poll.
I don't mean specifically. I meant the ones that are leaning towards conservatives or the ones that are leaning towards the liberals. Are you going to do the ones that are in the city, or are you going to do the ones that are in the country? This is my point. This is what they do for you. This is what the pollsters and some of them. And I'm also talking about the ones that are not, that have nothing to gain.
There is no.
Absolutely, there's independent ones. Absolutely.
I'm not saying there's not independent ones, but everybody has something to gain from these.
No, actually, if there's certain people where you actually, like statisticians, mathematicians, and things like that, they don't care.
Why are they doing it?
They don't care because it gives you an illumination to how other people are thinking. That's why.
Well, we'll see. To me, the polls aren't even that important in this discussion. But what I wanted to say was the who you're voting for should not be more important than the why you're voting.
Amen.
And you should never assume, or anybody should ever assume, the why you're voting based off of who you're voting for.
Ooh, even better. You didn't even have that one earlier.
Really?
When we talked about that? No,
Yeah.
That was a good follow-up.
Because...
Wait, repeat it.
Okay, so the who you're voting for should never be more important than the why you're voting. And you should never assume the why you're voting for based off of the who.
Basically, they're complementary, inverse of each other.
Right. So. And to people that are projecting that sort of stuff on anybody who they're voting for, regardless if you're voting for Biden or Trump, it is wrong, it is unfair, and it's a dangerous assumption because you don't know these people, and people have many, 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 many different depths, layers, thoughts, everything. Think about how complex you are as a person. So to reduce somebody to one simple thing based off of who they're voting for is wrong, and it's dangerous.
Right. And what you mentioned with that, in addition to that, is that and you don't just throw your hands up because neither person suits you. All those levels that you just talked about, you don't just throw your hands up and say, well, I'm just not going to vote then.
No.
Because like you mentioned, the why you vote is just a fundamental right, not to mention privilege, that you need to do as a citizen of any democracy, and especially ours. Whatever you call it, republic, democratic republic, socialist democratic, whatever.
Right.
If you have the chance to vote and can dictate, because it does determine, like we talked about, 11,000 votes in Michigan.
Right.
Well, if you don't think your vote counts in a state that has probably tens of millions of people, 11,000, that was less than 0.01% or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, your vote matters.
Every vote does matter, and it matters even more on a local level. If you don't think that the president's going to impact your life, fine, but vote on the local level. Mm-hmm. Make sure you're informed, because that stuff will impact
your
decision.
Too.
And then exactly. In the state level,
some of those ones, when you read it and you're voting on a proposition or someone who's in favor of XYZ, and it's going to help your community, whether maybe it's infrastructure, schooling, and stuff like that, you'd want them in
Yeah.
your
That stuff,
office.
That stuff directly
Or
impacts you, right? So pay attention to that stuff. It's very important. And then the electoral college. I mean, that's just something we have to change.
I agree.
It's
the
so
whole point-
outdated. It's been
absolutely.
outdated forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore.
No, it doesn't. And and that one's we don't even have enough time to even. Go
No,
into
we
that.
don't.
Actually, you know what? Yes, we do. The electoral college is no longer needed.
There we go. Yeah, the end. Exactly. We don't even have to tell you why.
Yeah, I mean, it just if you don't know what it is, you go and look it up. The short summary is that way back in the day, we did not have the ability to communicate all across the nation, communication, news, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, we elected people to basically bring all the people, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not congregate, but
Consolidate.
kind of consolidate basically the thoughts behind what the individual people were, and then they would go and do the bidding and vote. Nowadays, we just don't need that.
Yeah, well, it's essentially, so it's a representative that basically speaks for you on behalf of the interests of your state. So you vote and do a certain thing, and then they take that and then basically count as a vote, as a summation of all of the other people's votes. However, they don't have to. It's kind of, it depends on a state by state basis.
And it also, the reason it gets a little wonky is because if you have like a 50.1 and a 49.9, then it has to all go to the 50.1. Whereas if you didn't have
not all states do that though.
No, but no, you're right. Not all.
Yeah.
Some of them are proportional and so on.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's the downside. Where now, since we can actually have a popular vote, and the popular vote itself can actually dictate.
Right.
The electoral.
Yeah.
I actually thought the electoral college was going to kick in last time because I silly me thinking that our system's in place. I truly thought the electoral college, for the first time in history, people would say, no, Trump isn't going to be president. I'm not voting the way that my state voted.
That would have been illegal.
That's what electoral college people are
Oh, you're
supposed to
saying
do.
that they would. Oh, well, but then they're not. Well, no, I'm glad they didn't, because then they would have been going against what they said they were supposed to do.
Right, that's their job, though. That the whole point was originally, historically, was that because you couldn't necessarily trust the voter to know.
Yeah, but that's not a democracy anymore, or a representative democracy anymore. That's people saying that they know better than their people.
Right, but that was way back when, because you would have hucksters and con men and stuff like that.
No, I'm saying for the 2016 election.
Oh, of course, right. But that was what the electoral college was designed for way back in the 1800s when they created it. Was because Miss and Mrs. Joe Bob didn't know that who they voted for was actually a con man. They didn't know that, but it was proven because there was no communication. So the electoral college could look at it and go, "Oh no, I'm sorry, Miss. I'm I appreciate you voting, but unfortunately, that vote is for someone who's actually been indicted or something like that."
Right. Well, we don't need to worry about that anymore.
No, we don't.
So we need to take it away.
But I thought that was why it would kick in, because they would look and go, "He's not qualified. He's not." And who knows? If it had, maybe we wouldn't have had so much of the wild last 4 years.
Hey, who knows? What has happened has happened. But
again, your voting thing is, by the way, which was what this prompted this. Austin didn't actually want to do this because he was like, it's too charged, and we did it. But you're saying is really important about who you vote for isn't as important as why you're voting.
Right.
And don't assume who someone is based on who they're voting for.
And there's a lot of people there. I mean, there's a lot of questions that could be asked from that. It's like, well, I mean, you're going to vote for somebody, why? And that's going to influence the who. That's true, but it's not the end all be all. And as I'm sure everybody can agree, is that we do not 100% support either of the main candidates in this election. And that kind of proves the point, is you have to then choose the why.
Yeah, and there is other ways out there.
There's a bunch of other things. If you want to have an influence and you don't want to vote for either one of them, fine, don't. You can vote independent, and if you vote independent and then you get them, let's say, I think it's 5%, let's say the independent party gets 5% of the popular vote. They get certain funds allocated to them to have conventions and stuff. So now, on a national level, they gain even more notoriety and attention and stuff. There's a lot of things. Your vote does count, and there's a lot of ways you can use it that people don't make very public.
Yeah, and pay attention also to the different aspects that people are starting to talk about to help correct this whole two-party system, since the two-party system isn't probably going anywhere. I mentioned to you the ranked voting, and there is some state, local, and state, and even some government or federal elections that use it and use the system as well. And that's a possibility that could help deter that two-party state.
Right.
And so
just be aware of everything you can do. You don't have to vote for either candidate. I mean, you don't have to vote.
But
I'm
just
not
remember,
tell you
though,
you have to.
right?
But
And do remember though that the point is the consequences of your vote. If you vote independent, understand that could be taking away from one of the other two. What are your priorities? Is what it comes down to.
What are your priorities? And we've had a lot of discussions about what happens if you vote independent and all that stuff.
Because in different situations and for different elections, voting say independent and taking away something from either one of the other two doesn't have nearly the same effect as other times. So you have to weigh.
It's a calculated
you really
risk.
do have to weigh what is most important to you.
Being conscious. Where are you? What state are you in? What county are you in? All this stuff matters because it'll help you make an educated guess as to what your vote will impact, and it could give you a security blanket to do something that you might not have normally done.
Yeah, the big surge that I've seen more than anything else that's bucking the trend, quote unquote, is the Republicans for Biden. I mean, I never thought I would see that. I mean,
there was some of that the last election cycle, though. That were saying we don't want Trump.
There's never Trumpers and stuff like that. But I didn't think that you would have basically hardcore Republicans saying he doesn't represent the Republican Party.
Well, because Trump's not a hardcore Republican.
Well, he barely represents the party platform. But
he doesn't represent anybody.
Right, but that's the problem. He should be representing everybody.
No, totally.
So it's interesting to see that, but that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. You may be a Republican and you're going to vote independent or vote for Biden. You may be a Democrat, like your traditional Democrat, and you're going, you know what? They really haven't done much for me. I don't know why I keep voting, and you decide to change.
Well, don't let, if you affiliate with a party, that's fine, be proud of that, but don't let your party define you, and don't let your party tell you what you should or shouldn't do, because at that point there's no decision, there's no freedom in that.
Yep, very good.
And so I'll say it again one more time. Do not let the who be more important than the why, and never assume the why based off of who.
And with that, think more, care more, live more, go vote. And remember, literally, with this voting episode, you can change your life, change the world, one vote at a time.
Very good.
All right. Talk to you next time.